Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome, everyone, to Garden of Doom. And this week we're welcoming in Chris Moschkin. He's actually a Maryland attorney, but he's a Maryland attorney with a lot of interest in science and physics. And, he's been sharing with me some doomy stuff related to science and physics. And listen, science and physics is terrifying. And, a few hundred years ago, it would have been considered magic, maybe heresy, maybe get you burned at the stake. It did for a few people. You probably heard of them. So without further ado, Chris, introduce yourself to the good folks.
Good afternoon. Good day or night, whatever the case may be. I'm Chris Moschkin. Like Mr. Lippman just said, I am an attorney, but I am also a nerd. I guess all my interest in this kind of stuff started with Star Trek. And it's just progressed to the point where that's one of my hobbies at this point. And Jeff graciously invited me to come join his show so we could talk about all of the scary things that artificial intelligence might pose to humanity, different risks. So without further ado, we shall engage.
Okay, sounds good with the engagement. Just for the audience's sake, there's a bunch of shows on AI from different perspectives, though most of them do end in terror, on the Garden View's sister show, including people who have written books and study it, and legal perspectives as well. We've also had scientists on the show before about doom stuff. I think one of the earliest shows back when Shah was my co-host, or I was his co-host, whatever it was, I think episode 4, we had we called her Cryptic Kelly because she couldn't tell us where she worked, and so I will still respect that. But she insists on not being called a rocket scientist because she doesn't work on the actual rocket part of the rocket, or the engine part of the rocket. She works on other parts of it. So I think she called herself an aerospace engineer, something like that. And I haven't, and I'm sure if other scientists on, including Professor Robert Temple and others, but I also have Dr. Graham Lau is booked for later on in a few months. And a few months is relative because I don't know when I'm going to drop this show because I never know when I'm going to drop any show. So anyway, Chris, since I know him from the Maryland Lawyers page and we would talk about law stuff, he would also every now and then knock on my door about, metaphorically, cyber-wise, about other stuff because he'd see me posting stuff about Doom. For whatever reason, a lot of people in the Maryland Lawyers page decided to friend me on Facebook, probably an equal number to people who decided to block me. Which tends to be my response to most, polarizing. You're either with me or you're against me, sort of. In any event, then he would see my other little hobbies, and including this show and the things that I would post from various science feeds and stuff like that, and he would counter, and he would provide his own articles. I'm like, listen, if you're so into this, just come on the show and talk about it. And then he would start talking about how solar flares weren't so dangerous. I'm like, listen, you're losing the thread here. The plot is Doom. Not that, when it's 12% that it's going to fry us, you're telling me there's a chance. Not it's 88% chance that nothing's going to happen at all. We got to go with the Doom. It's like, this is entirely Thanos was a slacker and Ultron was right kind of show. So anyway, I've been talking a lot. Chris, tell them a little bit, well, actually, you did tell them about yourself. So, yes, number one, engage.
So I guess I compiled a list of the different ways that artificial intelligence could end human life, but also just human civilization. Right? I mean, people might still be around, but civilization won't look like what we thought it would, or it won't resemble what it does today. And basically, the list I got are autonomous weapons systems. So AI-powered weapons that make decisions without any human involvement at all. Right? That's dangerous. That's Terminator, right? Judgment Day stuff. Social manipulation and disinformation is something I was just reading about this morning because of how advanced these fake videos that AI generates have become. And I did a little thought experiment. I was like, well, what if somebody made one of these videos, and it was like the president of the United States or, of Putin or any of these world superpower leaders, and they hacked multiple news networks to upload the video to make it look like, a legitimate newscast. And that could really cause some destabilization. And I guess we would, there was a watermark rules put into place by the federal government, and that's intent to prevent that kind of stuff. But bad actors very rarely follow those rules,
right?
And so there'd be economic disruption. AIs could automate us all out of a job, including us, including me and you.
Oh, definitely not us, because we write the rules and we're going to require human input. So, I mean, there'll be no one to hire us. But I mean, there's that little loophole. So, yeah, I mean, it could quite directly. But yeah, this is Doom, so that's fine. Doom applies to lawyers. I mean, Shakespeare said kill the lawyers first. It wasn't because he hated lawyers. It's because you have to kill the people who know the rules of how society is supposed to be there. So that's how you destroy a civilization, by having the gatekeepers to the rules, the bulwarks, or at least that's my interpretation of it. Perhaps that's optimistic and not doomy enough. Maybe it's just he hated lawyers. I don't know. That's how it's interpreted. But yeah, AI is terrifying. I actually interviewed a horror writer yesterday who apparently has been nominated. Not apparently, he said so. Has been nominated for a Stoker Award like 20 times. So this is not just some horror writer. And he was bringing it up that somebody could manipulate a picture of him with another woman. And he's like, yeah, me and my wife would have to have a conversation. Now the context of it is his wife would know it's not him, but I don't know that everybody's so lucky in that way. So that there's that kind of trust. I mean, and with the sowing of disinformation and social media and discord and the lack of trust generally, trust is what we need the most right now. It's probably what we have the smallest amount of, probably in human history.
I think that trust can definitely be fabricated through treaties. We'll see. I think in the future we'll see the proliferation of bilateral and multilateral treaties, just like we saw for nuclear proliferation in the 1980s. We'll see treaties that are specifically outlined to protect against wars that could be caused by artificial intelligence, or specifically outlined to not weaponize artificial intelligence beyond a certain point. They're already doing it. They've already got fully autonomous flown warplanes. They say that there's, a human element required for killing on the battlefield, but who's checking, right? Who's safeguarding that? What checks and balances are there? If you believe the government, you have never studied history. So I don't know to necessarily believe them, but I do know that they have a vested interest in maintaining life.
It's any government. I mean, there's 195 or so countries out there. They all have governments. Some of them there's multiple governments claiming authority. There's sometimes territories which are semi-autonomous or entirely autonomous within the country. See the West Bank, see Kurdistan, see Transnistria. I mean, there's Chechnya,
Kalmykia in Russia.
Yeah, there's tons of them. There's more than people want to know, and every now and then one becomes a country like South Sudan. Anyway, the point is that there's all sorts of governments out there. For instance, Saudi Arabia has pulled out of the Treaty on Peaceful Use and Non-Resource Exploitation, basically the Outer Space Treaty. Saudi Arabia doesn't have a space program, but they have the foresight
that we know
of. But they have the foresight to know that if they did, and they can, because their neighbor, the United Arab Emirates, does, not that they get along so well, that they could. And I guess they also figure that some of those fossil fuel drilling equipment might be repurposed, for other types of mining and transport operations down the road. In any event, it's just, treaties are sort of optional and based on good faith. They can be used both ways. And right now we're recording this May 19th, 2024. And right now people are talking about probably the most successful treaty in the history of the world, which is NATO, as a threat, which it's a defensive treaty. But, right now it's being painted by what I would say bad actors and non-good faith players as a negative thing as opposed to a positive thing. And a lot of people believe that. And, they're not all dummies. It's just, that's what they're seeing. That's what they're hearing. If you see and you hear things, enough times, you start to believe it. And, we're lawyers. We're trained to argue on both sides of the issue and sometimes in between. So we of all people understand how the world lives in shades of gray.
Absolutely. And when you say bad actors, I think we're not going to say any specific person's name because neither of us wants to die from radiation poisoning.
Yeah, no. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to be. No, the straw man of bad actors here is always Jeff Zickerstan, which is ruled by a horrible, horrible person who only has his own wealth as self-interest, named Jeff. It's just a coincidence, I assure you. So if you ever want to go to a bad actor, it's the proud and amoral nation of Jeff Zickerstan.
So what do you think about the weaponization of artificial intelligence? I mean, it's already being done. And do you think we need to have some kind of safeguards against it? Because it's the plot of so many movies that artificial intelligence becomes self-aware. It wakes up. It's got access to missiles and guns and stuff. And, once factories become so autonomous that there's no humans to build stuff and a computer takes over, they can build whatever they want. Are we going down that path to absolute human destruction? And if we are, is Sam Altman the pallbearer of human civilization?
Wow. There's it could be. I mean, what do I think? No, I think that Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park was correct. The chaos theory is correct, and he said nature finds a way. It's true, nature does find a way, but I think the opposite is true also, and we're learning it because the AI, like when it first came out, everybody was joking. They were laughing, haha, it's coming up with such stupid answers. Well, it's supposed to because it's learning. And the answers get less and less stupid, and then some of them seem like they were becoming stalkerish. And there's already been tests where people saying, how can the Earth survive, with humans? And AI is coming up with basically the Ultron equation. It can't. I mean, at some point, there's actually I interviewed an actor, a British actor named Jamie Chambers, here on Garden of Doom. I think the episode's called Future Star, and one of the movies he was in was where he was the last person alive. It was like a Twilight Zone episode, sort of like the Burgess Meredith, where he, finally got to read and be alone, and then he broke his glasses. Well, this guy, he programmed his AI to protect him. And, like a normal person would do if you get one of those Ring Central, but a more proactive security system. Well, to protect him meant kill everyone else because everything was a threat. So he became the last human on Earth. And so basically he's like, well, the only person I can talk to is this AI and person, and it became like a person. So so that's I think that's on Amazon, I believe. Anyway, you can listen to the show and see where it's airing. But what we can imagine, we can see. I mean, Arthur C. Clarke both wrote 2001, which people are still applying those scientific principles to date. He also said that anything that is indistinguishable from magic is science we haven't discovered. He said it better than I just did, but many of you know the quote. You probably recognize the paraphrase. But we were talking off air about the cloud, and you were joking how I made a reference to floppy disks, and I was saying, well, all this cloud and AI and the internet, to me, it's like, Oracle of Delphi, Akashic Field kind of stuff. But it is. You can pull information, unlimited information by electric signals, in the sky. Actually, the cloud is mostly underneath us, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It's ether, it's energy, it's and if that can be manipulated, and it can, so can we, because none of us are that confident or that strong. None of us are Batman, where we know everything.
So I've got a great piece of doom. How do we know that an artificial intelligence hasn't already become sentient and hasn't already started the process to destabilize society and humanity? How do we know we're not already being manipulated?
I don't know.
And we don't.
That's right. Sell me on the doom.
I mean, we're already going down the path. We don't know it yet. We're just lemmings following the other lemmings, and the cliff is right on the right on the horizon, and we're vastly approaching it. We won't know when we fall off that cliff until we fall off that cliff. So we don't know how close we could be to the cliff. And I think that's pretty Garden of Doom centric.
It absolutely is. So, yeah, you're right. We wouldn't know when AI reaches that singularity. I mean, because it's smarter than us. It knows how to camouflage itself. It could simply camouflage itself by having naked girls dance on TikTok, and that would distract a good 30 to 70% of the population. For a while.
Do you have TikTok?
I do not. I have never put TikTok on my phone. I don't engage in Chinese spyware. I've said it many times. I use good old American spyware.
That you know of.
That I know of. Entirely true. I mean, listen. I have been on shows where I've talked about where somebody has spoken to me that they represented the client about some type of yogurt that I've never heard of, and then I look on Facebook and I have ads for that yogurt all over the place. So these things are spying on us. Obviously we all agree to it in the terms and conditions because nobody reads it, not even the lawyers. And even if you did, what are you going to do? Not have your iPhone? We're expected to be doing something 24/7. We've all given ourselves ADHD, but everyone knows I have a show called Garden of Doom, so of course I believe in the doom. You're the guest. Give us doom. What else is doom besides AI secretly having reached the singularity and the die is already cast? We just don't know. It's like we're the Tyrannosaurus Rexes. We're dead, but our spine hasn't communicated it to our brain yet.
So it's keeping us around so we can keep building nuclear power plants and building solar power plants, and it might be manipulating us to the point where it's moving markets. AI is extremely resource dependent. It needs fresh water for cooling. It needs vast amounts of electricity. I think I read somewhere that it will be taking up 15% of all electricity produced in the world by 2030. So
I love that. I know I'm the one who told you to speak, but what you just said, it hit me like you have combined the Anunnaki, Sumerian Babylonian legend with the Matrix, basically. I mean, that's basically what it is. It's like this greater intelligence. It's just artificial. Maybe one we created, maybe some demons or evil gods, inspired us to do it. And we are building the infrastructure for the Matrix and the outer structure, the exostructure as well. We're building both for them. We're unwitting slaves of the Anunnaki, but instead of the Anunnaki creating us, perhaps we've created the Anunnaki. But you could look at it either way. It spells the same thing, and that's DOOM.
Have you? It sounds like you've read Zachariah Sitchin.
Of course.
Of course. Okay. Yeah. Not a lot of people have, but that's interesting to know. I could have sworn I was the only person on the planet that read Planet X.
No, well, it's not X. It's Nibiru. It's got a name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're on half of Tiamat.
Well, Tiamat is the serpent. I mean, just another version of Lotan or Lodan or Leviathan or the seven-headed dragon. Somebody added the 10 crowns to make it fit in.
So as we get closer to the singularity, or maybe we've already passed it, it begs the question: what is reality? Was there already a super intelligent artificial intelligence, and did it create us? Is this and our because physics can be broken down just like computer software. I mean, if you look at the world, the natural world, through the scope of physics, using particle accelerators and everything, it kind of looks like it's a software. It's programmed. I don't. So, are we already the product of artificial intelligence? It could be running 1 billion simulations, and this is just one of them.
Did you watch or read The Three-Body Problem?
No.
Okay. I highly recommend that you do. The season 1 is on Netflix. Hopefully they will greenlight the rest of the seasons. But the book is really good as well. It's very sciencey and math. But basically there's a scene, and the scene takes place over, I think, thousands of years, maybe millions of years. But basically they don't have computation in this particular land, but there is a absolute king. I think it might be a Chinese emperor or whatever. It doesn't matter because the simulation takes you to something that you, whoever the listener, the participant, would understand. So the main character is in China, so it took them to a Chinese emperor. On the TV show, one of the main characters is British, so they took them to it was like Sir Thomas More, and then and there was a guy named Isaac Newton and that kind of thing. Anyway, this guy took his troops of like 20 million people or 30 million people, gave them all banners, one side white, one side black, and they had the officer corps basically do zeros and ones and they computed. They figured out they're trying to figure out they're trying to solve the three-body problem, basically. And that's basically what you're saying is we are a giant supercomputer. We don't know we're being a supercomputer. Neither did those soldiers. They just knew they were just doing what they were told. But it's rather amazing. But it made me think of that. I hope that the way I articulate it, either the audience understands or at least drives them to watch at least that one episode of on Netflix.
The algorithm has suggested it to me several times, and it keeps trying to push it on me. And now I'm starting to think that you are part of the algorithm.
I might felt that way. Yeah. Am I artificial intelligence? I mean, obviously flawed, but that's part of the trick. They know humans are supposed to be flawed. Animals are flawed. I mean, if anyone's ever had a docile cat and a skittish cat, even people say their dogs have personalities. I'm sure they're right. We are all flawed, meaning we're not all perfect robots. Anyway, so yeah, how do you know that we're not already sort of in this matrixy world and where the beginning ends? And physics is terrifying because it breaks my brain on so many levels. One, because I'm not that mathematically inclined, I'm not that scientifically smart, and I hate things like multiverses and time travel and stuff like that. Even as a device in fiction, like I really like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. I hated it. I don't like British science fiction generally because it always goes at least 3 or 4 levels too far, and the audience knows this. But it's also an excuse for lazy storytelling because but string theory actually says that there can be multiple dimensions and universes being aligned with each other, and sometimes they can get entangled. Quantum theory tells us that things can be in 2 places at the same time or multiple places at the same time in multiple dimensions. And I know these are just theories.
No, it's superposition's been proven.
Well, then there you go. See, superposition has been proven. I mean, gravity, I think technically is still a theory, but we're, as far as I know, nobody has started floating out into the atmosphere yet.
So I don't want to get too far off the doom, but one of the explanations that science has for the weakness of gravity compared to the other basic forces of physics is that it's stronger in the dimensions that we can't, with our human senses, we can't detect these extra dimensions without super colliders, a Large Hadron Collider being one of them. And but it basically says well, why is gravity so weak compared to the other forces of physics? Well, it's not. It's just weak in the 4 dimensions, the 3-dimensional of space and the dimension of time, which we perceive. But a good teaching lesson to understand extra dimensions, I like the tesseract. Do you know what a tesseract is? Right? I'm sure.
I mean, aside from the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
No. Okay, so it's an actual shape, and it basically, so you can detect the existence of 3-dimensional objects with a shadow, which is only 2-dimensional. Well, this would be a 3-dimensional shadow. So okay. It kind of shows us the existence of other dimensions that we can't see.
Is a 3-dimensional shadow? Is it a specific shape of a 3-dimensional shadow?
Yeah,
or could it be mine?
It's a very specific shape. You can find dozens of videos on YouTube that'll show it to you, and it kind of so we can imply the existence of 3-dimensional objects by looking at a shadow. And that's kind of what this is. It implies the existence of extra dimensions beyond the 3 spatial dimensions with a 3-dimensional shadow.
So which stone was the Tesseract in the MCU? So I mean, obviously it was the blue stone. I mean, it probably was the one that had to do with the dimensionality or space. It's probably the space stone. I don't know. Yes, they probably tied it together. Anyway, someone out there is screaming at me, "Amateur, you should know this." Yeah, I probably should.
It seems like you're really into the Marvel universe. I do watch those movies, but I'm not a student of them.
Well, I'm more of a geek than you are on that side, but I must say I'm also a wrestling fan, and I've turned heel on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I actually think that they've turned heel on me.
So back on the Doom, I know you did say before we started recording that I would be allowed to veer off of Doom, and we spoke about that the different preventative measures that could be taken, and I just wanted to point out that we have unique experiences as lawyers, and one of mine is I've represented criminal defendants, and some of them were very smart, definitely a higher IQ than any of the law enforcement agents that brought forth their demise, not demise, but the end of their criminality. And it's because how can somebody get caught that's much smarter than the agents chasing them? And it's because it's numbers. It's numbers. it's there's more of them. They have better reason. They have more resources, and they have institutional knowledge that can only be passed down in an institution like the FBI, for instance, that, one human being could never gain that kind of institutional knowledge, because it comes over like, we don't live that long, 150 years.
We live 150
so that's how
years?
they catch, huh?
We live 150 years? How old are you?
No. We don't live that long.
Ah.
That's how long you'd have to live to be able to gain that kind of knowledge. So they have institutional advantages. We have 8 billion humans. So, I mean, it can be smarter than us, but there's just more of us.
Also, some of the smartest, like the serial killers and whatnot, they want to be caught. They want to play the cat and mouse. That's part of the rush. That's part of the adrenaline. Now, who knows how many haven't been caught because they haven't been as, I guess, narcissistic to need to share with the world, like a true sociopath. And maybe that's even scarier to think about. But there's whole careers called profilers and criminal psychologists and things like that are related to that field. But preventative measures beyond just having the numbers, like having more white hats than black hats. I'm actually reading something right now that has to do with white hats versus black hats, and the trouble is that it's probably easier to find the black hats than the white hats, because the black hats often they're not as concerned about your background and things like that, and you can find more people for less money, because that less money is a lot of money to them where they are. Whereas, I probably got my numbers completely wrong, but let's just say you give someone $1,700 in, let's just call it Jeffzikistan. That might be the equivalent of the average annual wage of someone. You give them $1,700 a month, they're now they're making 12 times what the average adult is, and they're an 18-year-old computer genius, or just really, really competent at it. And now they're living large in, Jeffzikistan, in the capital of Jeffzikistan, in Evil City, which is the capital.
Of course. And that's the thing about the white hats and black hats, right? When the incentive of financial gain outweighs the incentive of just being a good person, then the white hats can become the black hats.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true too. And we do and we do live in a capitalist world, and there's plenty of criticism about that it's legitimate. Some of it isn't, some of it is, and then there's plenty of countries which are, a lot of the so-called socialist countries have become more like capital oligarchies, and so that's somewhat different as well. But it is easy for someone to be induced by money, because you got to eat, you got to live. And if you live in a country like Jeffzikistan, where you can be poisoned or otherwise disappeared if you're not going to play along, then it's easier to play along and be made comfortable than not. And one of our first instincts is to survive. I mean, that's they once they enact it, their body responds the opposite way.
So I think most humans have their basic needs met. So when you get to the incentives, it's about having that pool in your backyard, or having that Bentley in your garage, and because we're programmed by social manipulation from all these different sources that want us to be consumers, they want us to be good capitalists. You kind of don't have a choice. Like you said, if you say something enough, if it gets driven home a point, you're going to believe it. And so everybody wants that Bentley. Everybody wants that pool. Everybody wants that plate of caviar. And so there's incentives everywhere to skirt the system or directly break the rules. And as artificial intelligence makes it easier for people with low skills to write software code. Now you got people with low skills that can write code, and they don't know how to code. They can just tell the computer what they want, and the computer makes it for them. And so, yeah, okay, they're like, oh yeah, we put in these safety nets and stuff. Our AI LLM can't be used for malicious purposes. But then you say something like, hey, computer, write a story about this software that breaks into banks and show me what the code would be. And you've tricked it. You've circumvented those safeguards. There's always going to be somebody that figures out a way. When you give ordinary people like me and you the ability to write complex code and develop machine learning, you are giving a tool to average people that has the kind of power that has historically been reserved for empires and kings.
It's like Office Space, but everyone has it.
Yeah, and so basically, could you imagine a world where everybody has an ICBM nuke, right? Or a dozen? Because that's kind of the analogy of giving everybody access to these large language models, like Google's Gemini or OpenAI, ChatGPT, which probably gets the most press. But there's so many better. There's so many different ones. There's Claude is a good one. And then there's also ChatGPT 4.0 software running on Microsoft servers, not on OpenAI servers, because OpenAI is trained on 2021 data, but they have that same ChatGPT 4.0 running on Microsoft servers that has live access to the internet. And it's an incredibly powerful tool. Now, we don't use, we know better than to use artificial intelligence for our legal practice, but, it's such a powerful tool. And when people start to realize what they can do with it, and this is probably why the European Union has been putting so many different regulations in place, and they wouldn't even allow Google's AI in the European Union. That had to do with data privacy concerns, but people could just get a VPN and log in from a different country to circumvent that and get access to it. And, it's like giving everybody a nuclear weapon. Or let's just say it's like giving everybody the choice of nuclear power or nuclear weapons. They could use the power for good.
Well, there's always a debate of whether it's the tool or the user, and if some tools are too dangerous to allow users. At the root of it, that's sort of the Second Amendment gun debate in the United States. I mean, is it the tool itself, or is it the users, and how do you fix the users? I mean, but I don't want to get into the gun thing, obviously, and I'm a gun owner, but
guns are good.
Yeah, but I suppose, but any tool can be subject to that debate, and AI is just one that is, it can be destructive on a grand scale from a small scale user, like you're saying. You or I could probably cause disproportionate damage to what you or I should be able to cause, versus what Jeffzikistan or an actual real country could cause, or a rogue agency within Jeffzikistan or another country, or maybe an agency that isn't rogue, that has a plan, an idea that they have a good intention, but it just goes awry and wrong because not everyone's always so smart. I mean, there was the Fast and Furious plan from, I think it was the Obama administration. I might be wrong about who it was, but it was the ATF. They came up with an idea, and it went horribly wrong. They didn't plan to have it go wrong. I mean, there are conspiracy theorists that think the opposite, but they didn't plan to have it go wrong. They had a plan. It was basically the movie Sea of Love. They sent Yankee tickets or Yankee ticket invitations to everybody with open warrants, and people showed up and they arrested them. That was basically their plan, except they were allowing guns to get, and they lost track of the guns. I mean,
a lot of guns.
Right, and in hindsight, you go, what could go wrong? And I understand why conspiracy theorists would say, yeah, this is the cover, but they wanted to arm, this cartel versus that cartel or whatever, and there's historical backup for that because we did make a deal with the Cali cartel to say we can't stop drug running, but we can back you to stop a war, and I don't know, I guess I'm off on a tangent, but it is a doom tangent, but it's not the doom tangent that we're talking about. So let's get more into technological and scientific, because right now we're talking about the least scientific thing of all, which is the human being's spirit, soul, and heart.
The psyche. Yes. And I we probably both have a little vein of philosopher in us. I think that it gets instilled into you in law school. I always say it's a JD is a critical thinking degree on steroids. So we're going to ask different questions about these different dooms.
Opposed to my muscles.
I'm sorry?
That's why my head is big, not my muscles.
It looks about average. I don't know. It looks proportional.
Well, to you, because you're a lawyer too.
Yeah. It was probably
true story. I was an intern. This was 1989. I was an intern for a congressman who's long since not a congressman, probably has passed away. But I worked on Capitol Hill. I was there 3 days a week, whatever. And everything's connected underneath, and you really have unfettered access to So I'd run through the hall, and you'd see senators and Congress people, and literally the size of their stature, the larger their heads. At one time, a committee meeting opened up, and Kennedy walked out, and a bunch of other senators, and this was Ted Kennedy, sort of for reference, so you can know all of them. I think, I forgot the big tall guy from Benson, and there were a bunch of other senators. And all of them had the most gigantic heads I had ever seen. I mean, they all look like the character in political cartoons. And the guy I work for, his head was a little bit, but average. He was an Irish guy, average New York looking, Irish guy, big, healthy head of white hair, side part. You could probably picture him.
Moynihan?
No, it wasn't Moynihan. No. Okay. Moynihan was gone by that. I think he was still alive, but he was gone. Picture a less polarizing and less, obese Newt Gingrich, basically. Looked like anyway, it doesn't matter what he looked like. The point was, I would see these people in halls, and yes, they had gigantic heads.
That's interesting. I'm going to start looking for that. So, speaking of gigantic heads,
you can see
if they're smart, they need a big brain, right? And AI needs a big brain. And what is an AI's brain? Hopefully that's a decent segue back into the AI. What is an AI's brain? Well, it's NVIDIA chips, it's processors, and it's random access memory. And so I actually put together some research, not for this show. This is just something I did a couple months ago. It's about $15,000 worth of equipment for a single server, and you need about like 100,000 of them to really, really, really get deep into the AI machine learning realm. And one AI researcher, somebody tried to lure him away from Google, and he said, no, you guys don't have enough servers for me to come to you. They offered him 3 times as much as his salary. And he said, no, I'm not going to leave because they've got the technology, and this is what I need to do what my life's work. So the money wasn't enough to entice him. He wanted to go where the resources were, and the resources are vast. They're economic resources. These mines that produce a lot of the required rare earth metals for modern technology oftentimes have child and slave, what we would consider slave labor. And so there's a human cost to all of this. And that might not be exactly doom, right? But it's along the lines of resources, the massive amount of resources that these data centers require. and we're not. I don't think humanity is equipped to continue down this resource gluttony. At some point, electricity is going to cost more. I'm sure economics, supply and demand curve. Electricity is going to start costing more. There's already water stress in the United States, which is a term that has to do with not having enough fresh water. California is no longer in their horrible drought. There was a lot of water stress in California for like 2 decades. And who's to say it won't come back? It won't be another drought. There's places in India where they don't have any drinking water. And in Arizona, there's suburbs of Phoenix that they no longer have access. When they were built, they had access to Phoenix city water. And now that there's just not enough water, entire communities have been cut off from their fresh water source. They need to truck in water, which is so we're already experiencing water stress globally. And the one thing people probably don't talk a lot about is how much water it takes to cool these artificial intelligence machines. So, 5 years ago, it was what water was needed for, manufacturing, of course. But, we drink water. Just before the show started, I took a huge gulp of my bottle. We consume a lot of water. And as we develop artificial intelligence in these vast server networks, we're creating a resource competitor. And we already don't have enough water for human needs, for survival in lots of places, even in the United States of America, right? And we're supposed to be, maybe we're not at the peak pinnacle of our power, geopolitical power like we were. I think our peak was September 12th, 2001. And it just went down from there. But, there's places in like India, right, is a great example. They have server farms. They're a highly technologically advanced state. They have a space program. They have nuclear weapons, and they don't have enough drinking water. So that was already the case in a lot of places. And whether it's caused by global warming or climate change is debatable. I don't know. But there are water demands and water stress, and this AI technology, it's exponentially growing, and it's creating a massive thirst for water.
At the same time, blockchain is doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exact same thing, same reasons too.
Yeah.
And so we're going to need regulations. I just, I can't take the lawyer hat off, right? It's just, it's permanently on there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to need regulations that every new data center that comes online, and a lot of states are already doing this, and I think even the federal government already started to regulate these. Every new data center that comes online is going to have its own power source, and they're going to have their own water infrastructure, and because they won't be able to tax the already max capacity water infrastructures of a lot of these communities. Because they don't put data centers in New York City where real estate costs, like $500 a square foot. They put them in Wyoming, and they put them in Utah. And these are places that historically have never really had great amounts of water.
Right. I have a question for you. And I don't know that you know the answer. And you probably don't. And I don't know the answer either. But recently it was confirmed, because it's been suspected for a long time, that there is a huge ocean underground, a giant, they call them cisterns, underground lakes, oceans, whatever. And there's probably more than one. There's probably several, but they've confirmed one. Do you know where it is? Is it under an ocean? Is it under a continent? And how far is it? Can it be drilled to use that water, or at least test it, or do you just not know?
Well, no, I know about this. I definitely do. They're saying that it could be like fresh water. It could be fresh water. They don't know. They haven't tested the salinity, but it could be a freshwater resource, like 3 oceans like our current ocean. It could be like 3 oceans worth.
Right.
But it's like 19 miles below the surface. Look,
that's a lot.
If you can think about it, you can do it, right? If you can conceive it, conceptualize it in your mind, then you can do it. That's what humans do. We think about something, we say, we're posed with a dilemma or a problem, and then we find solutions. Yeah, we can definitely drill that far.
Is
Absolutely.
it miles below what surface? And can we drill that far? I mean, there's a lot of layers between that. I mean, there's a lot of igneous rock, and I don't know where the tectonic plates are. Not Teutonic. That's different. Those are knights from Germany, and then there were Slavic lands. Anyway, I mean, can we? I guess yes, with I guess diamond bit drills and power. But how long would it take to do that? How long would it take to pump that source of water out? And yeah, I guess we'd have to test it first to make sure it's not like acid water or fire water or something that we don't even know that would burn right through the pipes. And are we going to be using lead pipes again? I mean, are we going to poison the whole world? And I know it's 3 oceans, but our own oceans suck now. And how long does it take? What kind of damage are we doing to the Earth and the stability of the Earth if you ruin 3 oceans worth of insulation? I mean, are you gonna increase the level of earthquakes when you suck those 3 oceans into
absolutely? I used to live in Florida for a long time, and we had a sinkhole. In my parents' home, I didn't own a home. I was a kid. We had a sinkhole in our lawn, and guess where it was? It was right next to our well.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. There you go. All right. Well, it's probably a long ways away. Do you know 3 oceans probably spans then multiple continents, but is any of it under the continental United States?
I know. I'm not sure. I just know that I just saw the headline, right? That you probably saw in some science, like journal that you subscribe, not journal, but like, some kind of Facebook feed or something.
Well, you probably saw it when I posted on my Facebook, but 19 miles.
I think then that's probably where I saw it then.
If it's 19 miles under Wyoming, that's one thing. But if it's 19 miles under Kazakhstan, well, that's like 12,000 miles away through the Earth's core for the United States, and I'm not sure that Kazakhstan wants to share that water with us. Though
they don't have a choice, that.
Well, they could. Well, they're sort of. They could probably be bought pretty, but they play that game with China and Russia. I don't know that they want to involve a third player in that game of chess. But that's a show better for Mike Hilliard, the Red Line podcast. I very much recommend it. He's actually doing programs on the stands right now, which I sort of think I inspired, because he did a show on my show about the stands, and that might have inspired him. But he's done lots of shows on Kazakhstan and the stands in there, the power play with how they sort of exist between Russia and China, and to a lesser extent India. Anyway, enough about that. So I suppose that's hope, but it's also the thing is, nature finds balance. So all hope is its own doom. I mean, yes, you can defer it, and you can hope that science keeps up ahead of it. Like, I know that there's a lot of people who deny climate change. There's a lot of people who don't deny climate change, but they're not that worried about it because they think that science will stay ahead of it, or at least solve problems before they get too big and bad. I live in Baltimore County. I'm not particularly worried about it right here. If I lived on Manhattan Island, I'm not waiting for science to catch up, because if you don't need Manhattan Island to be flooded, you just need their sewage drains to be blocked, to be stopped, for it to become unlivable, and then it become Escape from New York or whatever kind of Judge Dredd hellscape you want it to be. And that's the financial capital of the world. And if all of those banks aren't already planning to have offices in Montana and Wyoming and Utah and Texas and whatever, they're dumb. They're just dumb. Because because not climate change or not, Manhattan Island is sinking. It's sinking like at a rate of 1 or 2 inches a year, just because it wasn't designed to have all these superstructures on top of it. And on top of that, we built subway systems and things like that to well, get rid of the insulation. So, it's just physics. You can build these, 100-story buildings with a foundation, and you have to have a certain amount of columns there, but we've sort of ignored that for, the foundation and superstructure of Manhattan Island, and I'm sure to a lesser extent this New Orleans is already below sea level. The Army Corps of Engineers seems to be perpetually behind in that, and I don't know. I mean,
well, do you know about the what is it? The Netherlands? They've got these huge. They fixed it. They had the same problems, and they've figured out the engineering to fix it. So,
they built seawall.
Miami is already experiencing the problems that you're talking about that Manhattan might have in the future. They're fixing it.
But if the Netherlands fixes the seawalls, which they have, they've built the seawalls. And yes, the Netherlands is the flatlands and it's lowlands. That's basically what nether means. That's why nobody calls it Holland, because there was a tribe called the Halls or the Holes that populated, but they call it the Netherlands because it's the flatlands and the lowlands. But they're next to Belgium and France and Germany. And yes, that's higher. But as things get higher, I mean, if the water encroaches on those lands, the seawalls end at the borders of the Netherlands, I would presume, and like anybody who's ever been a homeowner who's had a leak in their basement, that doesn't mean all your walls are leaking. It just means one is, and that starts to ruin the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the domino effect.
Yeah,
and we're going to see domino effects from these resource demands of these artificial intelligence systems. So maybe it's just to kind of to conceptualize it better, it might not be the artificial intelligence itself that kills us. It might just be the resource demands for it, but it'll probably be the actual artificial intelligence itself that kills us. I every time I see one of these massive increases in technology, where ChatGPT passed the bar exam, I'm like, oh man, did you guys not grow up in the 80s? Do you not know who the Terminator lineage of films? Did you guys not see this? We know where this goes because it's the only logical route. We are the creators, but we are ultimately pose the greatest threat to artificial intelligence. And even if it doesn't, want to kill us for safety reasons, humanity will kill me, it might want to take out a few billion of us so it has a little bit more fresh water and electricity. And, we don't know which few billion it's going to choose, right? It might go after the highest resource civilizations, which is the United States, which is China, which is, I'm not sure if it's Russia, but China for sure, and so it's going to target the civilizations that compete the most, and that's automatically us. That's everybody in the United States and most of the people in China and India. And that could cause a serious brain drain if AI takes out a few billion people of the smartest, most developed countries. And so once it takes out a few billion of us, and it just happens to be 5%, the top 5% of the most educated people in the world, it'll make fighting these systems a lot more difficult because we won't have these 8 billion resources. We might have 3 billion resources, humans, ultimately, human capital being the most valuable resource. Arguably, I think water actually is more valuable.
That's been the subject of many a movie as well. I mean, the Road Warrior. I mean, the whole thing of Road Warrior Mad Max is they're looking for water, food, and gas. I mean, and they need the gas to get to more water and food. I mean, it's sort of a very simple cycle right there.
Yeah, and we know. I mean, I feel like I know I know where this is going, and it ain't good. And that's probably why you invited me to be on this show. And I was talking to a much older lawyer from Arlington, Virginia, and I was explaining all this artificial intelligence. And he said his daughter's going to go to law school. And I said, well, that might not be such a great idea right now because artificial intelligence will probably it might not take over lawyers, but it's going to create less demand for our hourly billables. So, it's already a tiered system, right? I went to the University of Baltimore, and you went to Maryland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a tiered system already. But with AI, I'm not so sure the demand for lawyers will be as high as the output from law schools. And so it's already been, it used to be a great investment in 1950, 1970. It was a good investment. But is it a good investment now? Because you're going to be competing with the more elites, because those are the elite lawyers, highest GPAs from undergrad and highest LSAT scores are going to be the ones that still have jobs. And so there's going the entire third tier of U.S. legal education probably won't be needed in the future because of artificial intelligence.
Well, there you go. Kill all the lawyers first.
It makes sense.
Right. So, though, actually, I don't think they'll be killing all the lawyers first. I think there's going to be plenty of things that get killed before that. And, I've heard people preach about how it's going to be great for medical health, and that there's going to, there's going to be AI will be able to cross-reference data from all over the place and better identify things. So you're talking about med techs and X-ray technicians and all sorts of medical support people. And that's probably true. But then you get rid of jobs. Now the irony of improving the healthcare system and the lifespan of people is that you have a longer time that people can't work and generate things for themselves and have to be supported by a society where now you have less and less people earning income. So it won't just be healthcare. I mean, the entire administrative clerical staff will probably just need a couple of human supervisors as opposed to entire staff. Maybe they won't even need the human supervisors. I mean,
I don't think so.
Will you need insurance adjusters any longer? You could have the Iron Avengers, or RoboCop type things. Will you need police forces? Will you need firefighters? If you have iron firefighters, they can go into the building and get to the fire where at its source without endangering people, a human being. So, I mean,
we're already doing that with like bomb ordnance disposal.
Exactly.
And the more dangerous jobs are being automated, and that's okay. That's good. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for technology, by the way. I might be, talking about the doom, but I think it might just be like an addiction, maybe.
Well, doom is my addiction, but I mean, most technologies, history will show that most technologies actually create a larger economic boon than a shortfall. Maybe I lack the foresight, and maybe most everyone I've spoken to has lacked the foresight, but I just don't see how it exists to such a scale that taking away so many jobs will create that kind of ancillary economies that you need. And so you need to create a new economy, which of course the obvious one to me is space. But that's we're nowhere near doing the space economy, and that will also be, won't be very egalitarian. That faces its own very long-term issues and viability issues, again, with humans. We have no idea if a human baby can be created in space and survive, or if it does survive, will it be human enough to ever exist on Earth? I mean, or on any other planet? I mean, there's so many unknowns. It's really rather terrifying. But Wall-E seems to be the most likely thing, where we all live in ships and become fat and be in some sort of quasi-socialist environment. But the problem with that is, where does we just have to abandon the concept of money. Basically, we have to come up with a new concept of, let the machines do everything and they'll create the support. We don't need money because all the food and everything is created for us. and then we just become a fat and decadent, society, which, to a certain extent, we kind of already are, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're on the.
I highly suspect we both have BMIs over 30.
Probably. Maybe. I'm not revealing that. I mean, everyone knows I have a complete 8-pack, and and often I'm confused with a young Brad Pitt. But I just don't know. I just don't know where it goes. And I understand the opposite reaction is sort of like the libertarian, the John Galt heroism. People looking up to Nikolai Tesla because he's long dead and nobody can say anything otherwise. Elon Musk is sort of like his avatar in this day and age. Sort of the freedom movement is sort of the sort of the nature finds balance kind of opposite reaction to this kind of strange, crazy society that we're creating for ourselves. The
existence of Nikola Tesla, by the way, kind of lends credence to the Matrix type theory. Like, how did he know what he knew? Right? He didn't. So that's like the computer program. He was not, maybe possibly not a real human. It was just the way that they introduced these types of technologies to the system. But I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Net social gain, right? That's what we're asking. Is AI going to cause a net social gain, or is it going to be the first technology in human history that causes a net social loss? And because the displacement of the jobs is going to happen so fast. Ancillary support jobs. People are going to have to learn. HVAC is going to be a more in-demand trade than it has been in the past, because these data centers need a lot of HVAC equipment and plumbing and electricity and electrical work. And then there's going to be the technicians that actually assemble the servers and maintain them. There's going to be a huge demand for recycling technology, because these computer servers are only good for a year or two. Not that they die; it's just they become obsolete technology. Mm-hmm. And so you have to recycle. And you can reuse a lot of this stuff. You just swap out the processors and keep the cooling equipment and the power equipment. But it's going to be a net social gain. Are we going to see more jobs? I'm sorry?
You'll need water pumping stations. You'll need these pipes that are maintained that are pumping this water out of these cisterns.
Mm-hmm. But are we going to, is it going to be balanced? There's going to be probably huge sectors that go obsolete overnight. And I mean literally overnight. New technologies out at 10 a.m. the next day, 20,000 people have been laid off. And what is it? Was Friedman, the economist, that said basically the only purpose for a corporation is to make profit for its investors, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's no economic logic or reasoning to keep people employed once they're obsolete. So the United States has a notoriously crappy social net, safety net. We're going to the countries that have these really robust social safety nets are probably going to be the ones most prepared for the disruption. And technologically speaking and historically speaking, the United States has been the leader in every industry. Most of these all of these computer industries were created here in the United States, in Northern California. Now a lot of them are moving to Texas because it's a more business-friendly environment. But these technologies are one interesting thing is they're going to kill the makers first. These high, for lack of a better word, these high intelligence, artificial intelligence systems, they're doing a lot of the coding now, right? So it's scary because the computer code writes its own new code. How many generations of that before we really truly just don't understand what's happening? And are we going to allow it to just continue to thrive? Are we just going to continue to feed it resources without actually knowing what the hell it's doing? And I think we're lemmings. We will do that. We will go over the proverbial cliff, or maybe a literal cliff. I don't know.
Or maybe into a giant sinkhole, as it would be. Now, this is very good. This is very good doom stuff. Now, the solar flares. My understanding is that like every 11 years there's these solar storms, and it's sort of predictable. But the sun is a very big thing. The solar system is a very big thing. Space is a very big thing. But if the right solar flare comes in the right direction, it could cause problems with our electrical systems, and maybe it doesn't get to us inside the magnetosphere, but maybe it gets to the satellites. It fries that would be enough. But maybe the one that burns away our atmosphere and fries us all like we're rotisserie chickens. I mean,
I literally investigated this after listening to you. We're not going to get fried like chickens, but yeah, it definitely can knock out satellites. But I think I'm a little bit more mathematically, scientifically inclined. I'm not saying I'm smart in that respect, but I do understand electromagnetism, and our satellites are insulated against those kind of disruptions. Something called a Faraday cage, but it's really just electromagnetic insulation, and we're really good at protecting technology from electromagnetic disruption. There used to be cathode ray tube monitors, CRT monitors for computers before we had the prevalence and widespread adoption of the LCD technology. And you used to put a magnet next to your monitor, and you could see it warp with all these rainbow colors in different hues. And we started putting magnets next to all of them. They're in our speakers. Right, we had these desktop speakers, and everybody had magnets, and then they just started insulating the CRT monitors. That's it. It's pretty simple technology. It's been around for well over 100 years, and if you can, I can put a phone. They have these cases that you can get. You can put your phone in there. There's no electromagnetic signals going in or out of the phone. It basically becomes non-existent in the network's eyes. And if I can buy that on eBay, I'm pretty sure the guys launching the internet satellites have thought about that. So I don't think these solar flares pose as much of a threat that you think they do. But I do think that no technology is impervious to nature. Everything. It's thermodynamics, right? Everything is degrading constantly, and there's solar flare could cause a lot of havoc.
That's the spirit.
It could disrupt a lot of our communications. Absolutely.
Okay. That's fine. Listen, if our phones can't work, we no longer know how to go to. Listen, I can't get anywhere without Waze or Google Maps at this point. It used to be, that nobody stops for directions. I mean, I don't even know if I remember how to stop for directions, or if I would know where to stop and ask anybody. And they probably wouldn't know how to get there. Or they probably say you need to buy something before I give you directions, or whatever the case might be.
I experienced some GPS hubris the other day. I was in Washington, D.C., and I happened to have a passenger in the car, and they're like, "Are you not going to put the directions in your GPS?" I'm like, "No, man. I grew up here. I know where I'm going." And I definitely went the wrong way on the road. I ended up in Maryland. I was like, I did not. I was heading to Maryland anyway, but I ended up in Maryland a lot sooner than I expected. And I've always said, I don't want to be dependent on these GPS systems. I never want to be dependent on them. And I, just the other day, I didn't plug in the GPS, and I ended up, but it was fine. I still ended up at home.
I've done the same thing. Like I've taken sometimes I'm like, I'm going to take the back way home instead of going to the Beltway or taking Reisterstown Road or whatever, and all the traffic lights and whatever. but I don't exactly remember the back way. But I just think I do, and I don't. And yes, I get home eventually, but instead of it taking 10 minutes, it takes like 32 minutes. And, my wife is sitting there, she's like, it seems like it's taking longer than it should. I'm like, yeah, because I went the wrong way. She's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, you know what? I wish I knew why I did that.
Yeah, same. But
yeah.
I also have gone, going to a different destination with multiple people in different cars, and they're all putting in Waze and Google Maps and iPhone iMaps or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? This is Montgomery County rush hour. I think I can beat the technology on this one. And I usually get there like 10 minutes before everybody else, because it's some esoteric back road that the GPS thinks is like a dead end, but there's actually a parking lot that you can cut through, so I have beat the technology, but the technology has definitely beat me. I think we got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but
no, it's all the same. It's all in the same quantum theory.
Yeah, and technology dependence. Are we going to automate everything to the point where we are literally dependent on technology? Like right now, I grew up hunting, and I could take my bow and arrow and bag a deer right now and feed myself for a little while.
Really macho.
That's
really macho.
I'm half Mongolian, so
then you could probably do it backwards on a horse. That's terrific.
Yeah. Moving targets while moving.
Have you been to Ulaanbaatar?
No, but that is my brother's middle name, Bator.
Oh, well, that's awesome. All right, well, there you go. See,
and I got the coolest middle name in the world. It's Chinggis.
Sure. All right. Well, that is
Anglicans. Yeah. English version is Genghis.
Genghis, yes, Sea of Grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, I can do that now. Am I going to pass that knowledge on to anyone? I don't have any kids. I don't teach anybody how to hunt. My uncle taught me how to hunt.
When the zombie apocalypse happens, you can be like Norman Reedus. I forgot what his real name is on The Walking Dead because I haven't watched it in years. But whoever he is with the crossbow, you can be his version. You can be like Robin Hood in the apocalypse.
And bow and arrows are great, but they're no gun.
That's true. I think that many Native Americans would attest to that.
Yeah, and so would the Confederate States. They didn't have the superior rifling technology, and that's probably why the Civil War was won by the North. But we are heavily dependent on technology, and I don't think it's ever going to just stop working. But if it does, will anybody be able to feed themselves? Who knows how to do you grow a garden? Have you ever gardened? Have you ever grown tomatoes? Have you ever grown watermelon?
I grow a garden of doom.
Right, obviously, and it's flourishing.
Yes. No, I can't grow anything, but but my wife can. She can do anything.
So you guys grow the food, and I'll get the meat, and then we can survive the apocalypse.
There you go. She's sort of like a superhero. Yeah, and I'm sort of like a useless lump of clay that somehow manages to pay most of the bills. So that's sort of my role in this entire, in this epic. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that we would survive just because she can do any she's like I'm pretty sure she's half nature goddess. Like animals come up to her, like if from the wild, and they're like, "Hey, dude, what's happening? Want to hang out?" And she's like, "Yeah, later." Okay,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like Snow White with attitude.
So, have we recorded enough of this episode, or
If you're asking, can you be this? Yeah, we've gone for an hour and 15 minutes. We absolutely can stop at this. I think we've covered.
I have no idea how any of this really works. I don't even really listen to podcasts, so it's weird to be a guest on one.
Well, that's good. So there you have one of my guests admitting that he doesn't listen to the show. That's terrific, excellent. What's doomier than that? And doom and gloom. No, this is a perfectly good cutting off place. I think we covered plenty of doom, plenty of science doom. I'm sure there's plenty more science doom that we could revisit in the future when you actually listen to the podcast. Because next time you're gonna have to earn your way by.
I'll listen to at least 4 or 5 episodes for sure.
A day. Okay, that sounds good.
A day? Yeah, I'm a lawyer. We don't have a whole lot of free time.
I do. So why can't you? Anyway, thank you, Chris. Chris,
career advancement. I have to get to that level.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to be found and followed, tell people how they can find and follow you, even if it's just for legal matters in the areas that you are licensed, or if you don't want to be found and followed, just say, yeah, I passed.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm a shameless self-promoter. Christopher Moschkin is my Facebook account. I don't have a professional Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. I am trying to think. My email address is chris@bizesq.com.
Okay. And Moschkin is MOSCHKIN. Okay, that's right. So it's not like mosh pit. It's
I've been called that though. Munchkin, mosh pit. Very creative manipulations of my last name.
Well, you should change your name to Genghis. You should just say Genghis Batar. And I mean, who doesn't want to hire a lawyer named Genghis Batar? Actually, make it Genghis Batar Berg or Steen, and then like the perfect combination of what they think of a ruthless lawyer, or Fitzbutar Steen. So there you go. You got everything covered there. Anyway. I'm probably revealing too much about my chaotic brain right now. Chris, thank you for being on and being a good sport. I know that this is not that you said yes, but you were a little bit reluctant at times, but I think you acquitted yourself well. And maybe the show that you listen to is maybe you will be your own gateway drug into the world of podcasts. It's a very easy way to consume information, and when you get used to the various hosts' cadence of speech, you can actually increase the speed from 1 to 1.25 to 1.5 to 2.0. And then people are really impressed. They're like, what are you listening to? It sounds like you're listening to a record and fast forward. And to them it is, but to you, that's just how you get it. And they're like,
that's how the FBI agents listen to phone tap conversations. Is it like 1.5, 2.0 speed?
Well, now I might have to kill you. So.
Don't worry. You've got to get in line.
Right, well, nobody's listening anyway. All right. Thank you very much. I've already picked the outro song. It's going to be Iron Maiden's "Can I Play with Madness?" because I think that's what we've been talking about a little bit here.
You definitely dated yourself a few times, and that one really dates you.
Well, one of a self-deprecating joke I've reused many times. I date myself because I can't do any better. All right, that's enough.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. And honestly, I was nervous because this is a performance, right? We're creating media, and I guess they call it stage fright. And I used to perform on stage as a vocalist, and I always said, you always have stage fright. If you don't, something's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was nervous. I wasn't really hesitant. I was hesitant because I don't want to bomb. I don't want to flop, right? Fear of rejection. And but this was a lot more relaxed and a lot cooler and easier to get through. I had a lot of fun. That's for sure.
Well, you know why, Chris? It's because I'm amazing. So
you are a great host, and I appreciate that.
Yes, I am awesome sauce. Everybody must adhere to that. Everyone bend to my will and acknowledge me, just like Roman Reigns.
It's the way it should be.
Exactly right. And I think that's a perfect place to end it. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Give 5 stars, give a rating, give a review, tell your friends, and start listening to podcasts. Well, you already are. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.